My name is Teddy. I'm an alcoholic. Um, so my story here begins in Kenya. I came here from Kenya in 2007, right after high school. Um, uh, I grew up in a fairly normal family. There was a lot of drinking around me. Culturally, where I'm from, drinking is a norm. Sharing alcohol with kids is something that's considered very normal, believe it or not. So I grew up around it, but it never really caught up at me until high school. Obviously, like most aviators, I was very intrigued with airplanes since I was a kid. And, fortunately for me, I knew exactly what I wanted to be, despite my financial background. Of course, my parents were not able to afford that for me in Kenya. But luckily enough, we won the green card lottery in 2007, right before I finished high school. It's funny I tell people win green cards and they think it's funny, but it's real. Uh, I was fortunate enough to come here with my family then, so we immigrated in December 2007, and we got here. And finally, I was like, maybe this is the time to try to see if I can actualize my dreams because I didn't even want to go to college. The only thing I wanted to do was learn how to fly because I thought that was the coolest thing anybody could ever do. I loved airplanes. I had pictures of airplanes everywhere. I grew up drawing airplanes, everywhere. I got punished because I would draw them on the walls and stuff around the house. Uh, so that's a fascination for me in my life. So fast forward 2008, I was out there looking for flight schools. We live in Kansas. I wasn't finding anything. I was finding a lot of stuff in Florida, which required you to have a lot of money in advance. Um, a lot of them were private schools, of course. So I enrolled in a community college and just got into some gen eds. Um, at that time, I was still drinking. I mean, I was 18, but the legal age back in Kenya is 18 for drinking. But I've been drinking since high school. Um, Drinking for me was a source of being social and getting out of my shell. I was a little shy, so when I drank, I just talked. And I talked a lot. You know, um, Over time that just became my go-to when I wanted to talk to people and interact with people. So that was slowly evolving, but of course there was no problems yet. I could handle my liquor pretty well. And coming from the country I came, that was not considered hard drinking. People drink really hard over there. So, oh, this is a norm for me. I'm here 18. I'm still drinking. I'm didn't get in any trouble yet. Going to community college. And then somebody had mentioned to me that there's a flight program at K-State and that I might need to look into it. That might be a way for me to get into flying. So I looked into that and, me and my parents applied for financial aid and they accepted me. Had me send some stuff that I had from back in Kenya and I did pretty well, in high school. So sent that in, and they took me in. So in 2009, I started school at K-State, Kansas State University, here in Salina, Kansas. And there my career began. That was a very exciting time for me because finally I could do something I've wanted to do for a very long time. That was a dream come true. I mean, a lot of people cannot say the same thing. I mean, you dream something and then here it is right in front of your eyes. And then all of a sudden, I get my private pilot's license, which I still remember till date. That was one of the best days of my life because I could actually officially say that I'm a pilot. Um, I don't know, for a lot of people, they share the same experience when I talk to them when they got their private pilot's license because they could officially say they're a pilot and show it to everybody. So that, for me, I was very excited about that situation at that time. And I was in college, meeting all kinds of new people. Now I'm over here drinking and, all kinds of whiskeys and all this other stuff that I've never drank my whole life. I had a little money in my pocket at that time, so now I could just explore things. And I'm also coming into my own. At that tender age. Now there's girls and all these other things. There's parties. So that started evolving. So in November 2009, I got hit with my first DUI. So that's where the journey begins. So when I got hit with my first DUI, I was like, all right, the FAA, didn't say much about that. It was just one DUI, of course. And then I was like, all right, we'll just keep going. I was doing pretty well in school, still partying. Um, when I got my ratings, commercial, and then CFI double I, still doing great, multi, um, and then flight instructed for a little bit. And then I landed my job as a aerial survey pilot for Air Associates of Kansas, here in Olathe, pretty close to where I live. So that was just perfect, So I get to go back to Kansas City, move away from Salina, which is out there in the woods. Now I'm back at the city. I got some money in my pockets. So now this was time to live large. I mean, I'm traveling across the country. I'm posting all kinds of pictures on social media. Man, I was the man at that time. So I was like, all right, this is it for me, right? I got a real job. Um, so that was going on, and then shortly I got another DUI. So that's different kind of problem. I'm like, all right, well, things are starting to escalate, but I never felt like there was anything wrong there. I felt like I just got caught, because I mean, a lot of people drive drunk, but they just never got caught. They get caught, and I mean, I've done it multiple times. So I was like, well, I just got unlucky. What do? I get a lawyer. I get a lawyer. He beats the DUI case, and I think they turned it into driving into a wrong lane. But the refusal case was a different case altogether. So now we had to go for that. So he tried to drag that into for a couple of years into 2015, but still couldn't beat it. And then at that point, I couldn't use any more money, so they hit me with a refusal. So now I had to report that to the FAA. So once I reported that to the FAA, shortly after that, I receive a letter, and they said you got to turn in your medical, and these are the instructions for joining the HIMSS program. I'm like, what the hell is the HIMSS program? Because I'm like, I don't know what to do. At that point, I'm like, I don't know how I talked to my company about this, because I mean, it took a few months to even report this to the FAA, because at that point I'm like, I don't want to lose my career. I mean, this is my whole identity. This is just me. I don't know anything else other than just doing this. This is what I tell everybody when I walk in the room. Um, this is a source of pride for me, a source of pride for my family. That's what they're telling everybody out there that I do. And then all of a sudden, you're telling me that I can't do this anymore. And I've never had anything taken away from me. It's really been a lot of good stuff, just accumulating and accruing up to this point. So took a few months, and eventually I was like, well, I can't do this anymore. And then I just go talk to the chief pilot, like, hey, this is what's going on, and obviously I can't fly anymore. And the FAA asked for their medical back, and I just sent it to them, and they're like, you know what, cool, I get it. I had built a very great relationship with most people at the company there, so I was kind of a sad situation, at the moment, but it kind of seemed like something that would get resolved in a few months. It was like, maybe if I start sending the FAA letters and stuff, but nope, that it didn't work like that. So I found myself, AME that could help me with this stuff, and I, started the journey, quote unquote. But now, and this was sometime in late 2015 when this started. I started doing that, and now I'm trying to stop drinking. Right, I'm not trying to get sober. I'm trying to stop drinking, so I can convince the FAA I'm not an alcoholic or anything like that. Because I mean, to me, alcoholics are just people that drink and just fall and do all kinds of weird stuff. I never do that. I mean, obviously I can handle my liquor, I mean, look at me. I mean, I was doing great in life. So that was me trying to stop drinking. But lo and behold, I couldn't stop drinking. But what I could do is I knew how to avoid, getting caught, because I mean, they'll just take their pee samples and stuff. And I knew how to go around that, I thought I was really smart. And sometime in 2016, they asked for a nail sample and I failed it. So I mean, you can't bullshit your way around a nail sample, unfortunately. So that was a big stumbling block for me, and they reported it to the FAA. So now things are getting worse for me. So now I'm like, all right, now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to flying because things are escalating. Um, and then shortly after that, a close friend of mine dies in an accident coming from the club. So at that point, I'm like, man, there's a lot of things just happening in rapid, succession. And I'm like, well, something has to happen, And for the first time, I was having that feeling of being overwhelmed. And at this point, I was running out of money. A company had paid me for a few months, thinking I'd get back, and that never happened. So they had let me go. Um, no money. You have close few people, dying from whatever situation that's going on here. And I'm still drinking despite the fact that I say that I want to be a pilot and, I want to do this for the rest of my life. But here they told me to just, stay sober for a few months and, try to get back, but I couldn't do it, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of sufficient evidence that there was something wrong here, but to me, that was not sinking in yet, right? But at that point, I was very overwhelmed, and one day I was just driving, and I just started crying. I just started shedding tears, and I'm not a very emotional person. I wasn't raised like that. I was raised in a background of people that are very serious, in nature, and so for a guy to cry, that was not the norm. And for the first time, I was driving, I was shedding tears, and I just told God, hey, take this away from me, whatever this is. I know there's something really wrong here, and I need you to take this away from me. And at that time, I had a sponsor, but at that point, he was just more of a picture. I mean, I wasn't really working the steps or anything. So I went and saw him. I told him my experience. I was like, I was really overwhelmed, and I know I have a problem. And he had told me before, if you are an alcoholic, just know that if you don't do anything about it, eventually it's going to kill you. And he had told me too that, hey, if you want me to write any letters or anything to the FAA for you, or, I'll do it. We don't even have to do any work. But if you really think you are an alcoholic and we need to do this, then just letting you know you're gonna die if you don't do anything about it. So I went and told him, hey man, well, obviously I've been drinking. I haven't been telling you, but I was drinking, and this and this had just happened, and I really think I have a problem, and I need you to show me how to do this. And I've been going to meetings at that point, but I'll just sit there at the AA meetings and just not say anything. I'll just pass. I never identified as an alcoholic. To me, I just felt like this was just a bunch of weirdos just sitting around and talking about drinking. Sometimes they even made me feel like drinking. Uh, so for the first time, I actually went to a meeting and actually listened. You know, and I was like, man, I actually have a lot in common with these people. With my drinking, and it's crazy how when you just open up and you start listening to things, you just realize all these all these things that you never saw before. So that's where I was in life then. I was very desperate, and I was like, well, I need to do what these people are doing here. So I started doing that. At that point in time, I'm seeing my AME, and that was at the end of May. So that was officially 20 May 2016, and that's when I got sober, 10 years ago. So, I talked to my AME, and I'm like, well, I'm really serious about it this time. And, I'm really trying to work on this. But then I kind of felt like the damage has been done with the FAA. I mean, they're looking at paperwork. They don't know who I am. And the paperwork says this guy really has a bad problem, right? So I know at that point, I'm like, well, I'm kind of doomed. So, I might as well just do this and, get better, right? So now I'm doing AA. I get into outpatient stuff, and I started doing that as well. I did that with the Alpo Core here in Olathe. So I was doing that, you know, uh, also going to AA and, hustling, selling cars on the side through a friend's dealership. He was letting me just sell a car or two to stay afloat. And also think I lost some money in the stock market then because I was just trying to make money everywhere. Uh, so that's what was happening. That's 2016. Well, into 2017, I was like, well, let me also try to get back into aviation and see what's going on there. So I tried to go back to Air Associates of Kansas to see if they had a job for me. And they said that, hey, if you want to fuel planes, you're more than welcome. And I was like, well, let me just get in here while I'm working on this stuff so I can, kind of start to get back in aviation. That's better than something I can show on my resume that I'm actually involved, while I'm doing this. And that was in 2017. And, so now I'm fueling airplanes. And then now I'm starting to meet guys that I flew with coming in on the airport, and I'm fueling the airplanes. And I'm like, man, that really just tore me apart, because I'm like, I'm supposed to fly the airplanes. Here I am fueling these airplanes. And I'm going through this HEMS program that nobody knows about. And I'm the only person that I know that is doing this because I didn't know no one whatsoever doing this. So I mean, to me, I was like, I'm doomed because I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't go through this. I didn't know knew no one, like absolutely no one that was going through this, and this is happening. I'm seeing guys now flying jets. We used to fly Cessna 206s. Now guys are just flying in jets, and I'm like, man, I'm over there giving them some jet air fuel, and I'm like, man, it used to just tear me apart. And that happened for a while, and then I moved to a different FBO at a different airport at IXD here in Gardner because I was like, well, I was tired to seeing all these guys, so I just moved to a different job. And then when I went there, I'm still seeing a lot of these guys still coming in at that different airport. So there's no way I could, escape pilots, as far as I'm concerned, because they just kept coming in, and I just knew a lot of people, because I used to network back then and whatnot. And I was like, man, I'm just seeing people progress, and I'm going to social media. I'm seeing everybody just getting the airlines and doing this and doing that, and I'm here that I can't even say what I'm doing. I'm just floating around, and I'm like, well, here I am. I'm staying sober, right? Health wise, I'm doing great. Things seem like like they're moving. So I try and go get a neuropsych eval. That doesn't go very well. During the testing, I didn't pass. So more work. I'm like, well, let me just keep working. And they told me, hey, give it some time and then come back again, right? So that's what I'm doing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stop the airport stuff. I'm gonna start a business. So I go and buy a box truck with the help of my mom and dad. I put some money back, and so I went and bought a box truck and I got on the road. So I was like, well, let me just go on the road and try to find myself out there, go on this journey. It's just kind of feeling like I just need to go away for a while, right? So I'm out there on the road, and man, I could not escape aviation, because at some point I was like, maybe I should just do something else or just keep focusing on this business and see how that goes. But I could just not run away from this and I was telling Tammy how many airports, there's so many airports on the highway, so there's just airplanes everywhere. And for whatever reason, you'll just see airplanes land night and day, And so I couldn't escape this. I had those episodes where I'll just go to some motel. I'll get a motel and I just go in there and I'll take a shower and I'll just cry in the shower because I was so frustrated and broken down. Um, and I didn't understand the process, even though I do now. Just a long and slow, humbling process. That God was trying to get me through there. and thank God I hang in there, because now I can see how that really built me to a point where I am today. But and this is going on, and I go again and try the neuropsych eval. It didn't happen. So I'm just on the road, keep going and keep going. Well, I'm like, well, this business is not making sense anymore. So I get into another business. Now I get into what I'm doing right now, which is non-emergency transportation. So I started that business because I knew a friend of mine that was doing that and he was doing okay. So I was like, well, let me just do that so I can stay home and really focus on this situation. Because now I know I really need to get back into flying, right? Because I've been on the road picking up cargo from all these airports and taking them, where, and I'm not escaping this situation, so I might as well just go home. So 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 I just went back home and started this business, and here I am, working the program, um, trying to do, and then I do it one more time, try the neuropsych, nothing. So now I'm convinced that I'm never going back to flying, right? But for whatever reason, it's just a glimpse of hope somewhere, because while I was doing my aftercare, and now I'd moved to Valley Hope for my aftercare, uh, I met a pilot that I'd gone to school with. So for the first time now I know somebody, and then we started talking, and then we started talking about birds of a feather and the Zoom calls. So I started getting into that too, right? So now I'm meeting a bunch more pilots that are doing the same thing I'm doing. So I'm meeting these guys in my aftercare, for Valley Hope, and then another pilot also joins in, and then another pilot also joins in. So I'm like, man. So now I'm like, so now I really feel hopeful, because I'm like, well, there's a bunch of people doing it, and a couple of those people had also gone through the same situation that I did and failed at their situation a couple of times. So now I'm like, well, if other pilots are also going through the same thing, then it might not be that bad. Because I mean, I was like, maybe this is evidence that maybe I'm just not supposed to fly, because this was just building against me. Or I'm like, well, this alcohol has destroyed me so much that my brain is not able to function the same way other pilots, do, because you go to these evals and they tell you, oh, this is how other pilots perform and this is how you're performing. And you're like, God damn, man, what's going on? So that was really frustrating for me. And the only people that understood the situation was the pilots that were going through it, because I couldn't explain this to my sponsor. I couldn't explain this to my family. They were like, well, you've been sober for several years now. What's going on? Why are you not, getting back? Well, I'm like, well, there's this little exam that I keep going and nothing's happening, and I'm like, well, I just really get frustrated, and I started saying, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do, try to get at the FAA. So I contacted my senator, sent him a letter, sent him a couple letters actually, just frustrated with this whole situation. Uh, and then they put me up with the guy from the FAA, and I talked to him, and they told him, he's like, hey, well, you could try some cognitive rehab. And that's the first time I heard of cognitive rehab. Some people call it remedial training. And I link up with Dr. Bracy out of Neuroscience Center of Indianapolis, um, and I start working with him. So we work together for a while, and then eventually he's like, well, I think you've shown a lot of progress here, and it's not like you were bad. You just had an untrained brain, and you just really needed to get back there. And he felt like I was good enough, so I go and try it one more time, and things went well. And you never know that things really went well until the FAA come back and say things went well. And the biggest problem I had was sending in my paperwork to the FAA and waiting for a long period of time and not hearing anything. So it just drags things out. So this time around, when my paperwork was sent, I was like, you know what, I'm going back to the senator. So I sent the senator another letter. I'm like, you know what, I need your help to see if I can reach over to the FAA because I don't know any way to do it. Because last time it took me so many months to even hear back from them. And interesting enough, they put me on like a three-way, phone call. So here I got the FAA on a three-way phone call, and I'm like, oh man, so I'm freaking out because I'm like, well, I'm gonna take this as disrespectful because I'm contacting the center. I'm trying to like force their hand or something. So they're like, well, what can we do for you? I'm like, hey, I just want to know if that's sufficient enough or not because I've been going at this for a long time. And they're like, well, looks like we've received your paperwork, so we'll look into it. And lo and behold, um, shortly after that, I just received mail, and they said, here is your, medical bag. And this was this year, January. So, I mean, that's that's a 10-year time frame right there. And, it's really hard to cover everything that happened to me during that time. But that's in a nutshell to that point where I got my medical back. But yeah, I've been chasing my medical for so long, but I was not seeing all the benefits that I was getting from sobriety. Because all the self-respect, getting along with family, getting rid of friends that shouldn't be around me anymore, should have never been there to begin with. Um, I have a lot of people that love me and respect me. I've had people come into my life, people that are very productive, and we've been doing a lot of great things together. I mean, there has just been a lot of benefits, and at least I don't sleep past midnight. I love my sleep nowadays too, so that's another thing. I mean, I've got to a point where I realize that me being okay comes first, and everything else comes later. And yeah, I weird enough, I got my medical, and I'm like, I thought I would feel something like crazy, right? I mean, I was really happy, but I thought I would just like be just really ecstatic. But then I just started reflecting on everything that's happened, and I'm like, man, the journey was actually really good for me. It just kind of broke me down and spit me out as a whole new person. Um, so yeah, here standing before you, I've just been changed by life. Just been molded. Um, Now I know this process didn't need to be that long, and I know what I could have done better without involving the senator. Uh, but also, I realized for GA pilots how hard it is to navigate the system because a lot of people don't have the tools to to go through this. Because I mean, until recently, through birds of a feather, through Tammy is when I found out about this group, and also this group hasn't been around for a very long period of time. So it feels like everything else is aligning. And so I was like, well, I need to be part of this so I can see where I can help, at least share my experience. And I know there's a bunch of people out there that are going through the same thing. Because I mean, I was randomly meeting people that were going through the same thing, and of course, nobody ever talks about losing the medical and being out here. And with the pilots are people that are a little egotistical, and they don't like to look like failures, and that feeling of failing, so people don't talk about this kind of stuff, and I was like, if there was going to be a safe space where people could come and talk about this stuff and be open about it, and see if they can get help, and have people like me come share their experience and hope, uh, and just come out here and
Absolutely.
talk about everything that they've gone through. And I hope that my experience and what I'm sharing here helps somebody. You know, I I don't like talking too much, but I was like, you know what? I need to go out there and do this. I need to go out there and you know have somebody else go through this without spending 10 years. Even though I mean it seems like 10 years was part of the plan, from God for me, but I know it could be shorter, and I know that if I keep doing what I'm doing here, somebody else will get the proper help that's needed.